Radio.
6 Music.
You are now entering a parallel universe. And wipe your feet on the way in.
Marc Riley, BBC 6 Music.
I suppose at some point you could play Roxette and Roxanne, but then that would mean playing Roxanne. I'm Marc Riley, and that is Rob Hughes. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, pal. Not bad at all.
Good. Glad to hear it. I feel a little bit low, to be honest. Not in a mood, but physically, because I think you've lowered this chair.
It's a power thing, Bob.
I thought so. You're looking down on me again.
Well, pinch Michelle's chair. I mean, Michelle is the boss.
Oh, I know that.
And if she notices that you are perched over her,
right,
then you'd be for it. But be on your own head,
no,
mate.
I don't want to go there. Let's just leave it, shall we?
Okie dokie.
So we're looking at sounds here, 6th of April 1974. What a great cover that is. Slade in all their glory there.
Brilliant.
More of which in a bit, by the way. So on the news page 2, Joni Mitchell's long-expected return to Britain was finally confirmed by Asylum Electra this week. Following her 40-date sellout tour of the States with her band LA Express, she brings them over for a week and makes her debut at London's new Victoria Palace at the end of April. She's going to play solo and with the band, who'll open the concerts. Meanwhile, new album Court and Spark has been a hit here, as well as going gold in the States. So this was Joni Mitchell going jazz, wasn't it? LA Express, she'd found in a club in Los Angeles. I think it was called a Baked Potato, and they were jamming. Robin Ford, Tom Scott.
What, was a baked potato with jamming?
Oh, I've never tried it. No. You know, each to their own.
Sounds horrible.
But it worked, so she went jazz.
Right.
Also in the news, despite his much vaunted retirement, in inverted commas, at the Hammersmith Odeon last year, David Bowie is almost certainly planning a major American tour this year. There's been no official confirmation, but Bowie is understood to have left Britain for America and is not expected back in this country until the end of the year. He's planning to play a series of major dates in America, though he has no plans to stage a comeback over here. Main Man, his management company, could neither confirm nor deny the story. As we know, this went ahead, of course, wasn't it? The Hugh Diamond Dogs turned into Philly Dogs. If only he'd been able to bring it over here, but it was an expensive do, wasn't it?
It was. The concept was great, and again, kind of groundbreaking, because they were like skyscrapers, weren't they? You know, the props, and they had scaffolding behind them.
That's right.
But the revolutionary idea, in a way, was that all the musicians would play behind the scenes, and it would just be Bowie and his two mates, including Jeff McCormack, of course, has been on this programme. Hello, mate. Hello, Joe. But they didn't like it, did they? So they'd keep popping the head out from behind, like Herbie Flowers. And you just see his head sticking out from behind a skyscraper, and you can imagine Bowie looking down every now and then. He's behind you.
You're paranoid, like Panto, as you say. But I get the concept of it. It was this performance art piece, wasn't it? As you say, some band members like to be more visible.
Yes.
And Tony Basil, lest we forget, she was choreographer on that tour, wasn't she? Brilliantly. Have you seen? You've probably been asked 100 times. Have you? Have you seen Moon Age Daydream yet?
I haven't seen it yet, mate.
Oh,
no,
right.
we're looking at going next week.
All right.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Right.
Also in the news of interest to you and I, Captain Beefheart will now play at London's Drury Lane Theatre instead of the Albert Hall. The show is going to be on June the 2nd. Tickets will be available after Easter. Virgin Records say they're going to keep the cost of tickets as low as reasonably possible, bearing in mind that Beefheart's entourage in Europe consists of 30 people.
Oh dear.
Henry Cow will support on all Beefheart gigs. Beefheart in 74, we'll get onto it because there is an album review later, so we can probably discuss there. And in the news, it's the headline here, it's been a hard day's 8 months. Into London the other day came cyclist Izaji Kanyuti after pedalling 7,000 miles from India. This 23-year-old Beatle addict rode through 16 different countries, and it took 8 months to make the trip. His destination? Liverpool, hometown of the Fabs. He just wants to soak up the atmosphere there where the first strains of Beatle music were heard. You've got to feel sorry for him there. There couldn't have been much to see, because this is way before the Beatles were sort of adopted by Liverpool in terms of memorabilia as a tourist opportunity.
Turned into an industry.
Yeah.
They wouldn't. Now I know where Ringo Starr used to live. I know where Paul McCartney used to live. If you do the Beatles tour, which is really great.
It is great.
It takes you around all the haunts, and you can do it in a couple of hours, and bingo. But that poor fella is probably wondering now, going, can you tell me where Ringo lived?
That's the thing. An American notes, David Geffen and Cher Bono, Mick and Bianca Jagger, John Lennon, Jack Nicholson and Angelica Houston were among the opening night audience for the Rocky Horror Show, which got some very good reviews and may bring big crowds to the Roxy on Sunset Strip. Rumour has it that Jagger is interested in appearing in a projected film of the bizarre, amusing play. I could kind of see him in that, although
definitely.
Although Tim Curry, was the perfect choice.
He did the job, didn't he?
The new singles on page 20, reviewed by John Peel. You've got Ducks Deluxe, Horse Slips, Procol Harum and The Kinks, Mirror of Love. He says, when clever dicks like myself are listing our favourite bands of all time, we tend to overlook the Kinks, yet they've given us perhaps the greatest wealth of truly memorable and evocative music of all. Only The Who and the Stones come close to them. This is another little gem, he says.
So you don't mention the Beatles?
Not at all, yeah.
I mean, I always, when I was listening to the Kinks' Greatest Hits, a double album, a long time ago, I used to think, you have got the Beatles, but the Kinks, not that far behind for me, really. I mean, just genius.
Yeah, not at all. And then Sparks, This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us. Peel says he got an 8-track of the album Kimono My House a few weeks ago. He only got round to hearing it last weekend when he was driving back from Eastbourne. He says, the very best in contemporary rock. Sharp, observant, witty, but still crammed with hair-raising rock, howling guitars, thundering basses and drums. The Mail Brothers are gratifyingly creative. A lot goes on, and the strange voices, the futuristic instrumental bursts and the sudden changes of direction may not appeal to you at first. I would venture to suggest that of all the LPs released so far this year, Kimono My House will best repay repeated attention. Wow. He wasn't wrong, was he? And just the fact that they were doing this in 74 and still sound magisterial today, don't they? Incredible.
Their last album, Steady Drip Drip Drip, is right up with their best.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely.
So it seems to point to one direction here, doesn't it? We go next.
War.
That's the one.
Okay. That is War and Me and Baby Brother. Reminds me a little bit of Change by Killing Joke there at the beginning.
Yeah, now you mention it, absolutely. So looking at sounds here, 6th of April 1974, and under the title of Dream Alien Rock, Gerald O'Connell, I haven't heard of him before, reports. He says, over the past 2 or 3 years, the threatened invasion of British and American markets by German bands has only partially materialised. Amandoul, Cannes and Faust have visited these shores with varying degrees of success, but question mark still hangs over the ability of German rock to achieve the kind of universal respect that seems reserved for British and American bands. But at last, it appears this situation could be changed with Tangerine Dream, band from Berlin. They were even, amongst all those other German bands, they were sort of slightly to the left of all that, weren't they? They seem to be operating in a field entirely of their own. Obviously fascinated, Edgar Froese fascinated with electronics and just what he could do with it, and performance too.
Yeah, I went to see them in not that long after that, probably 1975, I would imagine. Okay. And I did find it just so bizarre and clinical. It didn't. Obviously, the emotions of that electronic music is quite kind of stifled, isn't it?
Yeah. There wasn't a lot to see, was there, on stage, from what I gather?
Just massive computers and the backs of blokes, sat down on stools, like fiddling with them.
Right.
And it didn't speak to me at all at that point in time. And obviously, you hear it now, and it's very influential, and obviously it morphed into dance music and everything in a way. But I remember just coming out of it a little bit bamboozled, really.
Yeah, perplexed by it all, okay. He does talk about that, actually, Edgar Froese. He says an electronic concert today is nearly the same as a classical concert in the last century. It's cold, as you said, and without emotion. I tried to find a real connection to the audience. Obviously failed on your part, Mark.
Sorry, Edgar.
In fact, Froese sees Tangerine Dream as a bridge between the emotional strength and commitment of rock and the vast new possibilities for musical expression being opened by electronics.
But you see, I mean, I wasn't listening to Noi at that point in time, but Noi now are one of my favourite bands. But if you think about it, it is more traditional, isn't it? I mean, there's guitar and drums in there, so
and melodies,
probably that's why.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got that Noi box set, by the way?
No.
Got that the other day. Oh, nice. Slade, as I mentioned before, on the cover, Steve Peacock gets ushered into Olympic Studios in Barnes, where they're just fielding questions from the press all day, having the picture taken. The new album is Old, New, Borrowed and Blue. And he says, I haven't even listened to it yet, which is unforgivable. You don't go and interview a band without listening to their latest record.
I do remember there was one, I mentioned it before, one Radio 1 producer who was interviewing Iggy Pop, and he'd listened to The Idiot once. And he went, yes, I listened to The Idiot this morning, Iggy, and I have to say, I didn't think much of it at all. It's like, and Iggy's going, okay.
I bet you love that.
Yeah.
Slade, he says, are beginning to move off at tangents on their albums. Moreover, the new single Every Day represents the first time they've lifted an album track rather than recording a single specially. Noddy Holder, who's sipping wine from a chipped beaker, says, we seem to be branching out. We're trying out loads of new stuff in the studio right now, and we've been doing so the same thing on stage recently. And because people seem to be accepting it, we'll continue to do so. Goes on to say that last year, obviously, they're releasing singles. They all went to the top of the charts, didn't they? He's sort of hinting it just all got a bit boring. So you're playing to the same audience, essentially. And where's the challenge? So they needed it.
Well, if you listen to songs like How Does It Feel, you know, a million miles away from Get Down and Get With It, or, you know, all of the big tunes that they had.
Yeah.
But what a beautiful, brilliant song it was, and it did really well for them. So it must have been a bit of a palate cleanser for them, mustn't it? Because, you know, you're just doing those stompers and all the time.
Yeah,
that's not somebody trying to get in, that's my boot.
No, that was your boot, absolutely. Yeah, but also brave as well, because it's so easy to stay with a successful formula, isn't it?
And hugely successful.
Yeah,
I mean,
massively.
just number one, selling millions.
Yeah, moving slightly away from a formula, so mentioned it before, alluded to it. Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band, Unconditionally Guaranteed, reviewed by Steve Peacock. He says, it's a bit of a step along the road, but the first one, he says, that perhaps indicates the medium is overtaking the messenger. This time he really has pared the songs down to basics, and a chap is likely to hear people saying this is really should get him to a lot more people. Not, I'm sorry to say, because people have finally begun to appreciate Beefheart, but because Beefheart is playing down to what people have already accepted. Yet in a strange kind of way, I prefer it to most of Clear Spot.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Well, he is sitting on the fence here, I think.
Right.
He says something very strong does glow through what would otherwise be an unexceptional album, but it's something that I feel rather than can identify. Whether that feeling will communicate to other people, I don't know, and whether its face value qualities will bring him to a wider audience, I know even less. You try it.
I tell you what, it sounds like somebody just got a load of different words, put them in a bucket, jumble them up, and then just lay them out together and see what comes. I mean, and the thing about that is that if you're talking about breaking the formula for Captain Beefheart, you would have to say, if you like Captain Beefheart, probably, that the formula was making great records.
It was.
Because that isn't.
That isn't. Blue Jeans and Moonbeams, which followed that, is equally not a great record.
Yep.
But we're not going to play the Captain, are we?
We're not. No, we played him a couple of nights ago. We're going to play Joni Mitchell, aren't we?
We are.
This is Troubled Child. Bob Hughes.
It is, yeah. So we're looking at Sounds, aren't we? 6th of April, 1974.
Yep.
Some of the gigs this week, you got Focus playing at the Manchester Hard Rock. Oh, been in a good night.
Yeah, I've seen the flyer for that.
Slade at Coventry New Theatre, that was a good night too, I imagine. Magma at the Roundhouse in London. Traffic at the Rainbow in London, supported by Richard and Linda Thompson's new band, Sour Grapes. Bill Haley and the Comets at Barnsley Civic Hall.
Ooh.
Roxy Music at Southport Floral Hall. Wizard at Sutton Granada. The Winkies at Thurrock Technical College. Caravan at Slough Community Centre. Granny's Fiddle at Tiffany's in Hull. I heard of them, have you?
No, I haven't.
Gene Pitney at Caesar's Palace in Dudley.
And you mentioned there Roxy Music and the Winkers in the same breath.
Yeah.
And then obviously Eno Scarpa. And then, Eno and the Winkers.
He's back singing again, isn't he, on the new album, apparently?
Is he?
Yeah, not heard it yet. War at the Rainbow in London. Kilburn at High Roads at Newlands Tavern in South London. And the Classifieds, page 28, Lou Reed Official Fan Club, SAE to Edward Street, Walsall. Staffs, didn't you become a member around this time?
I did, actually, and I remember that you got one of the things that you got loads of photographs as usual and newsletters, but there was a little piece of jean material.
Denim,
yeah, with Lou Reed stamped on it, and it was supposed to be from a pair of Lou Reed's jeans.
Really?
Yeah, but you would know whether it was or wasn't.
Well,
but we were very trusting.
Yeah.
13 years old at the time.
You must have been thrilled, though.
Yeah.
Did you get anything else?
No.
Right, okay. Live from, you got Dr. Feelgood here, reviewed by Steve Peacock, who seems to be everywhere in this issue. He says, the thing that first attracted me to Dr. Feelgood was that they include a lot of songs in their act that I used to love when I was a mere youth back in the wonderful 60s. The second thing was that they look great, no nonsense rhythm and blues, and played with obvious vigour, imagination and respect for their music. The third thing is the impact of their music doesn't lessen when you go back for another shot. They're playing at the Hope and Anchor in Islington. He calls it a torrid, cramped pub cellar. Great atmosphere though, and a band on a small stage playing tough, loud, spirited music. At the moment, they play few of their own numbers, very reasonably preferring to pick out songs they like and which suit their style and the feel of their surroundings. But the feeling they create isn't nostalgic so much as essential. Whatever numbers they play, bands like Dr. Feelgood are at the heart of rock music. I wish there were more. This is interesting as well, because this is still sort of 8 or 9 months before Down by the Jetty, the first album, comes out. So it really is the very early days.
Right, and a much more cohesive review as well by Steve Peacock. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, he should have spent more time listening to Beefheart anyway.
Okay. So, are we done, Bob?
I think we are done, Mark, yes.
Okay, well, Gideon Cole, Birthday Boy, is next. We've got to go. I need to say thanks to Penelope Isles and to Jonathan Esp and Simon and to Rob and to Michelle and Peter. And we're going to leave you with Ann Peebles and I Can't Stand the Rain, and we'll see you on Monday night with Jeffrey Lewis live in session. How great is that? Thanks all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Prepare to exit the parallel universe.
Mark Riley, BBC Six Music.
And shut the door on your way out.